your blunts ready. Get your drink ready. It's about to go down.
The Arizona primary election is on July 30th, 2024. Voting locations are open on Election Day from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. All qualified voters need to show ID. Still have your mail-in ballot? Return it at any voting location or secure election drop box. You can also check the status of your early ballot, see voting locations, and review accepted IDs by visiting arizona.vote. That's arizona.vote. This message is sponsored by the Arizona Secretary of State's office.
Tune in to the Best in the West, Real Rida's Only Radio, where you can find the hottest podcasts and live radio broadcast. We will also be covering the Arizona elections debates in every category. On Real Rida's Only Radio, go to realridasonlyradio.com. Press the menu on the left of the screen and you can look up the Our Radio player, our podcasts, and the Arizona election debates, and our exclusive shop where you can buy Real Rida's Only music. That's Real Rida's Only Radio. Also, Artist Want in the Rotation? Send your music to realridasonlyradio@gmail.com.
You're tuning into the best in the West. Real Riders Only Radio.
Are you looking to work in a fun, fast-paced environment? With a creative team? Somewhere with learning opportunities and growth potential? Become a certified childcare provider in your home. You'll get to support children's development, run your own business, help your community thrive, and best of all, work with people you love. Get certified at azchildcare.org to begin a meaningful career.
Don't be fooled by the people you meet on social media. It may start as an innocent conversation, but anyone who tries to sell you pills is nothing more than a drug dealer. And if you think tiny pills can't do much harm, think again. Fentanyl can end it all. Know the truth about fentanyl at learnmoreaz.org. Don't be fooled. Don't be faked out. Visit learnmoreaz.org. This message is sponsored by the Substance Abuse Coalition Leaders of Arizona.
When life gets overwhelming, but you just don't feel like talking, help is only a text away. Trained and caring crisis specialists are available by text 24/7 to assist with suicidal thoughts, substance use issues, depression, anxiety, and more. You are never alone. When you need help, please text HOPE to 4HOPE. From anywhere in Arizona, text the word HOPE to 44673. This message is sponsored by Solari Crisis and Human Services.
Agent. My name is Mari Rabago, and I'm joined by Steve Goldstein, who will be co-moderating today's debate.
The format for this debate will probably be familiar to you, but the way we're sharing this debate is part of a brand to support democracy. Thanks to a partnership with the Clean Elections Commission and the Arizona Media Association, we're working to make sure these 2024 debates are the most accessible in Arizona history. That means this conversation will air on a long list of local TV stations, radio stations, and digital platforms, including support from local newspapers. It's a shared effort among hundreds of local media brands across Arizona.
That is correct, Steve. And transparency is critical here. That's why this debate has been designed with input from a broad group of journalists in Arizona representing urban and rural communities. And we are trying to keep the rules very simple. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to make an opening statement and 1 minute for a closing statement. Candidates have draw straws to determine the order.
And throughout only that candidate's microphone will be open. At all other times, every microphone will be open. Thank you to voters across Arizona who've submitted questions. We've reviewed all of them to make sure every voice is heard. However, no candidates have been given advance access to any of the questions. And with that, let's introduce our candidates for this debate: Frank Mike Crawford, Frank Milstead, Jerry Sheridan.
And Mr. Jerry Sheridan, you have the first opening statement. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. My name's Jerry Sheridan, and I'm running to be your sheriff. The Maricopa County Sheriff's Office is here to serve you and keep you safe. Sheriff's Office does this in 2 ways. Number one is they run the jail system for the entire county. There's 25 municipal police agencies that use that jail system. And so the sheriff needs to keep the open and beds available for officers throughout the county that arrest people. The Sheriff's Office jail system makes up 75% of the jail, of the sheriff's responsibilities, and has approximately 2,500 employees, 75% of that budget, and we're responsible for the care, custody, and control of those inmates. That's number one. Number two is we do it by providing traditional law enforcement services that most people are familiar with. In the unincorporated areas, serving about 500,000 people that live in those rural areas. But we also do other things other than that. We do civil service, civil process. We attend the courts, provide safety and security for the judiciary. We serve warrants from out of state, and we do extraditions, and we bring the bad guys back to Arizona to stand trial. And we also coordinate and maintain a sheriff's posse. That's a very vital piece of the sheriff's office. So the Sheriff's Office has a total of 4,000 employees, an operating budget of $526 million, 224 square miles. And the reason I know all this is because I spent 40 years at the Sheriff's Office, 17 years in a patrol car, 33 years as a leader, as a supervisor, 20 of which was at an executive level, and I retired as the chief deputy.
Okay. Mr. Sheridan, thank you. Mr. Crawford, you now have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Hello, voter County. My name is Mike Crawford, and I'm striving to be the leadership example and an honorable law enforcement officer as I have in my whole career. I served in law enforcement over 28 years. I served in the military. I'm the only person in the race that served in the military. I have military leadership training and experience. I have also worked as a DEA agent, so I have city, county, and federal law enforcement experience. Something I bring to this race and to the Sheriff's Office is to be an inspirational leader. I've done it right, and I want to show them how as well. As a law enforcement officer, I worked at an accredited agency where we were above the level that law enforcement officers and departments should be. We can bring the Sheriff's Office back up to this level, and that has to be done with supervision. The deputy sheriffs and the detention deputies that work for the county are amazing folks. They've done the best job that they can. They've lacked leadership, the proper leadership to get them above the board, above the level. The sheriff's number one job is to ensure the safety of all citizens and people inside Maricopa County. I've served you for over 30 years, and I will continue to do such. I bring a different type of leadership to the Sheriff's Office that I believe will work better, and we can bring the Sheriff's Office into a new age. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now, Mr. Frank Milstead, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. My name is Frank Milstead, and I am a native of Phoenix, Arizona. I am a lifetime Republican and a conservative law enforcement executive. I'm the only one in the race that has led 2 major police departments. I was the chief of police of Mesa for Mayor Scott Smith, and I ran the Arizona Department of Public Safety as the director for Governor Ducey during his term. My experience goes back to 1985 when I was a neophyte patrol officer working the west side of Phoenix, and I spent 25 years there, almost every assignment rising through the ranks prior to heading to Mesa. I've also have a lot of experience with our federal partners. I built the Arizona Border Strike Force to combat migrant crime and drug trafficking into Arizona when I was the DPS director. I worked with the state legislature, the governor's office, Customs and Border Protection, and the White House to build the Border Strike Force. I sat with President Trump when he was figuring out what his immigration policy was going to look like, and then I was invited back to the Rose Garden when he announced his immigration policy to the rest of the country. My time in law enforcement has been successful. I'm endorsed by both the Mesa Police Association and by the State Troopers Association. I've also received endorsements from Sheriff Arpaio, from Governor Ducey, from Barry Goldwater Jr., and also from our former U.S. Marshal, Dave Gonzalez, along with Sal DeCiccio, former council member from Arizona, or from Phoenix. when I give those endorsements out, there's a lot of consternation. People wonder, how is that possible? And at the end of the day, I bring a broad appeal to my experience and expertise at leading police agencies. That's what I've done the majority of my career, and I look forward to doing that as your Maricopa County Sheriff.
Mr. Milstead, if you don't mind, we'll stay with you since you mentioned also Arpaio. And 11 years ago, after a long-term running lawsuit, MCSO was somehow ordered to stop racial profiling against Latinos and also implemented this practice to be overseen by a monitor. There's a lot of concerns in the community that those practices are still occurring nowadays. What reform do you think has been successful in stopping those practices within that office?
I think if you look at the statistics now that the department generates to the monitor and to the federal judge, I think you'll see that those practices have stopped and changed. Even when chief of police in Mesa, we had sheriff's deputies come out to Mesa and round up workers that were working in kitchens or working in car washes, and it was very disturbing to the community. It fostered race-on-race crime. Latino community was not comfortable contacting law enforcement. So I think those things have begun to wane. I think we need to continue to work on that. And I think there's an option or a priority for the leader of the organization, for the sheriff, to report the successes and the challenges that the office is having with the court order monitors, but to make sure that they let the community know what's happening and be the voice and the face of the agency and let them know how those reforms are going.
Thank you for that answer. And Mr. Sheridan, in your opinion, what reforms do you believe have been successful so far?
Well, I believe a lot of reforms have been successful. I had an opportunity when I was the chief deputy to begin to work with the monitors that were appointed by the court for 3 years. And what we did is we set the stage and the foundation for the future success that the sheriff's office has had in the last 7 years since I left. And so that 200 paragraphs, it'd be hard to say which one's the most effective, but the training, the mindset of the bias, you know, the implicit bias and explicit bias, and explain to them all of those issues have made a big impact. And, you know, you have to understand something about the things that are still considered not to be in compliance. We're talking about seconds on traffic stops, a minute extra in a traffic stop for Latinos and blacks. And I don't know how that can ever be changed. If you have a language barrier, or someone's not cooperating with you, or somebody's looking for paperwork, you know, all those kinds of things kind of play into the fact that we're still not in compliance with that. And, you know, it's a law enforcement function. And the sheriff's office, those deputies are under such scrutiny every day in documenting everything available to them. So it's very difficult. You know, the old days of a traffic stop when Frank and I and Mike were out there making traffic stops and writing a ticket on a piece of paper are long gone. And so now it's a very complicated, almost a specialty assignment.
Thank you for your answer. And Mr. Crawford, in your opinion, have any of these reforms, if so, have been successful?
I think some of the most successful things that have come out of the orders from the court, they force the sheriff's office to engage the public more and in our Latino communities. One of the biggest helps has been the forced training. Training to treat people correctly, reminding law enforcement officers who they work for. In my entire career, I always remembered that I did work for the people. The people are my boss. We have to get back to that simple plan of remember who you work for, remember what you're out there for. Being a deputy sheriff is a calling. It's not just a job. It's a lifetime dedication to serving the people that you live around. We live in this community. We serve this community. We have to get back to the simple, not Mayberry, but the simple ideas of where we're from. Our country was founded on Christian beliefs and by volunteers. We need to get volunteers back in this country, in this county. We need to remind people who we're there for and what we're there to do. With the Sheriff's Office, we need to get more deputies in there so that we can catch up on the backlog of the internal affairs investigations. That has caused a huge issue. The deputies right now, their Bill of Rights, police officers have a Bill of Rights, has been suspended due to the backlog in the investigations. This puts a heavy burden on top of the officers, and many of them are going through long investigations over some very minor things that could have been handled a lot easier. With the order, we need to solve some of these issues, but get back to the community and who we serve. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Sheridan, at the most practical level, the Melendrez case that Mari brought up has cost taxpayers tens of millions of dollars when it comes to that. And as you mentioned, you were involved in the first 3 years or so when the court monitor was involved.
Right.
How would you assure Maricopa County voters watching right now that under your leadership, the county voters, the taxpayers wouldn't have to worry about something like this ever happening again?
Okay. Well, you know, the court order is very complex. It's a very difficult situation to discuss in a couple of minutes. But what we do at the Sheriff's Office, and I spent 17 years in a patrol car in a uniform, and I never met a deputy sheriff that wanted to abuse somebody's civil rights, that took advantage of somebody because of their skin color. And that's why, you know, my initial response to the court order was pretty emotional, because that was not the sheriff's office that I knew, not the sheriff's office that I grew up in, not the way I was taught. I'll give you a real good example. There was an old-time deputy sheriff that grew up in Higley, Arizona, as a redneck, if you want to call him that. And he put me in his patrol car one afternoon, and he took me down to the farm workers' fields. And it was on a Friday afternoon, and when we drove up, everybody came to him and came to us. And we talked with the women and the children and the men there. And when we got back in the car, Charlie said, "Do you know why I brought you here?" And I said, "No, why?" And he said, "Because it's our job to protect these people from their women being raped, their children being stolen, and the money that these workers are making so they won't be robbed." And so that sheriff's office that I knew and I always grew up in, and that is the sheriff's office that I know. And the court order and things, it's very complicated, but there was some mistakes made by the previous sheriff with targeting Hispanic neighborhoods, and I used to argue with him all the time, "Sheriff, don't do this." And then when the court order came out, he'd say, "I'm not going to listen to that court order," and I'd say, "Sheriff, stop. You've got to stop saying this."
Okay. Mr. Milstead, if you were in this position, you've talked about your leadership positions with DPS, with Mesa Police, what can you do to assure Maricopa County voters that something of this magnitude would not happen again?
Is excellence. It's building a deep bench of people who can solve complex problems in a very timely manner. And that's probably the gift that I've had throughout my leadership career, is because I spent so much time leading police agencies, that I have a deep bench. I know people that are very talented, that are able to solve these issues. And if you look at the complexity of the orders, it only got worse. And that's the thing that I think is most disturbing. There was the initial court order by Judge Snow, and he felt that it was not being addressed at a high level. It wasn't being accurately taken care of. It wasn't taken seriously. And in 2016, he issued a second court order, further complicating the issue and costing Maricopa County taxpayers more money. And then finally, in 2022, he did the same thing a third time and issued another court order. So my idea and my goal is this: to establish teams of people that I know and trust to look at these complex court issues and solve them. Put together the people and take it seriously, give it 100%, and move forward. If you look at the budget for the monitor, the budget for next fiscal year, they just approved $46 million to deal with the court order and with the monitor. And to me, that is just completely unacceptable. It's money that could be used for the pay for the deputies and the detention officers. It can be used and for equipment, rebuilding the dignity of the women and men that do the job. These are good, hardworking people that are working mandatory overtime. They're taking deputies from investigative jobs and putting them back in patrol because there's not enough people there. The community's not safe. The kids that go to the lake and the river and traverse the county highways, there's nobody out there to make sure people are doing what they're supposed to do. So we need to use that money elsewhere, but we need to address these problems quickly and effectively.
Mr. Crawford, talk about future leadership and what tone you'd set there.
Well, the tone is honesty and integrity, pride in serving the community that you live in and the people that you live with in the community. The sheriff's office, with the orders, they're complex issues, but the solutions are not that complex if you break them down. It's the allocation of the proper people in the proper place, the allocation of the proper resources and technology. I'm a law enforcement officer. I retired 3 years ago. At that time, I was on the street fighting crime, protecting you. I haven't been behind a desk for decades. I'm in touch with the currents of technology, policing, and community policing, and being in touch with the community that you provide law enforcement services for. I'm not stuck in an office. I haven't been and I won't be. I'll be out on the street in the community with the people that we serve to make sure that we are serving them in the proper manner and with the understandings of changing communities. I grew up near the Navajo Indian Reservation in New Mexico. I've lived here in Arizona for over almost 30 years now. So I know the community here. I know what it's like to deal with minority communities and be a part of those minority communities. Here in Arizona, in Maricopa County, we have multiple tribes and indigenous peoples that we need to look out for that do get targeted more than other populations. The migrant community here also needs the same protection. They're in our county. They deserve our protection just like everybody else.
Thank you. Mr. Sheridan, taking in consideration the time you were at that office once the court order was implemented, from your view, what additional reforms related to racial profile still need to be taken place?
The communication with the public. You know, this is a perfect example of where perception is reality with a lot of people. And like I said a few minutes ago, I don't know of any deputies, and we have a lot of Hispanic deputies also, that work diligently to protect our community. And so the reality is, you know, like I said, you've got a few seconds here and there on traffic stops, but the days of deputies targeting Hispanic neighborhoods, under the direction of the sheriff, by the way, are long gone. And I'll never forget the day the sheriff, the first time he sent me to the court was the day after, it was way after, it was 6 months after the trial, and he told me to go get what the judge's order when he issued it in June of 2012. And so I went there, and I came back and I was flooded by the media with all cameras from all over the country, and they asked me, well, what's your comment? And I says, well, the sheriff's office is out of the illegal immigration business. But when I got back to the office, the sheriff chewed me out for saying that. So he is long gone, and he's not coming back. And the new leadership, hopefully it will be me, because I have that experience. I've dealt with all these issues with the court monitor and the deputies and getting the morale back, because that was a big blow to the morale. And people, deputy sheriffs, just want to go do their job, and I will let them do that.
Thank you. Mr. Milstead, in order to protect public safety in the best interest for taxpayers too, from your point of view, what additional reforms need to take place when it's related to racial profiling in this office?
When I was the chief of police in Mesa, we built forums with all sections of the community. with the Hispanic community, with the African American community. We had great relationships, even with LGBTQ communities, to make sure that everybody gets world-class police service. Remember, law enforcement is nonpartisan. We're there to provide world-class police service to everybody who picks up the phone and calls 911. And we only ask two questions when you call: where are you and what do you need? And that's all that matters to us. We just want to provide you service and protect you or give you what you need when you call. So building those forums within the agency and reaching back out to those same constituents that I had relationships when I was leading Mesa PD and the Arizona Department of Public Safety, I think is paramount. Again, very open communication, transparency with everything that we do. I've already done that internally. I do videos every month for my departments that I lead so they can hear directly from me. And understand what my priorities are as the visionary for the agency, as the leader of the agency. I am there to establish culture. You cannot legislate good police behavior. It doesn't work that way. Good policing comes from good leadership. It comes from a culture of excellence. And everybody has to pick up that piece. And even when I was a patrol officer in Phoenix, the chief would publish the pillars of the department, and we all had to do our part to work on those pillars and to do something from each of us to make sure the chief and the agency and the community was successful. As a leader of the organization, you have to manage 3 number ones every day. You have to work with your community, you have to work with your elected officials, and you have to work with the men and women that you lead every day to build that culture. And so when you talk about reform, it's leadership, it's excellence, it's police service on a world-class level, and everybody needs to understand that, and they need to know what those pillars are and do their part to make sure it's done.
Thank you. Mr. Crawford, from your point of view, what additional reforms need to be done related to this topic?
So related to this topic, the ongoing training of deputies and detectives, our medical personnel that work in the jails. We need to be able to identify trafficking victims. We need to be able to identify victims of crimes. One of the best ways to communicate, like my other gentleman here said, is communication. Bilingual communication training should be offered to every deputy if they want to take it. There's should be an incentive plan for multilingual, bilingual, trilingual people to work in the department. We need to recruit more from the communities that we serve so that our department, your sheriff's department, reflects the community that we serve. We need to be very proactive in ensuring the deputies are following the proper procedures and statutes and along with the order. In doing, I will be out in the field with those officers and in the jails with the corrections officers to make sure that what they're doing is correct and to gain immediate feedback on how we're doing and how the department's doing and what gaps need to be filled. Obviously, we need more manpower, and that comes from being a solid leader. People will work for a good leader. People don't quit bad jobs, they quit bad leaders. We need to be more proactive in retaining good officers, which goes forward into saving the taxpayers' money and retraining deputies, new deputies, and using the skills and experience that good deputies that have been there for a while and know their community have been. We need to make the beats smaller so they have a more personal touch with the community and they're not having to drive 30 to 45 minutes from call to call and they have no time to be proactive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Sheridan, I'm going to come back to you only because I want to ask a follow-up. You said something a lot of people say, it's a cliche almost at this point, perception is reality. But because of that perception being reality, what would you do, what have you done in the past to try to rebuild trust among particularly Latino communities? I understand there have been outreach efforts, but you personally, because we have heard from lots of different folks that maybe there have been efforts, but we still feel in danger to some extent to call. We're still worried about calling because of the color of our skin. What would you say to build trust with those folks?
Well, what I have been doing is I've been going out and talking to the Hispanic community, and I'll tell a little story. A few years ago, I was sitting with this older Hispanic man, and he wasn't real fond of me because of, what job I had had prior. And so we sat there and we talked for about 2 hours. And at the end of that, we talked about faith, talked about my opinions about the illegal immigration and the open border and what vision that I have for the sheriff's office. And at the end of that conversation, he had a tear in his eye, and he gave me this. He gave me his rosary and a hug, and good friends since then. And so what the issue is with all law enforcement is people need to know who we are. And sometimes it's difficult, and the media gets in the way from us doing that, okay? The perceptions that people have of us because of that issue. But individually, I know those deputies are out there doing the best that they can, and I need to communicate that in a way that doesn't have all the falderall around it.
Okay. Mr. Milstead, I'm going to emphasize the word trust. How would you rebuild trust specifically with the Latino community?
I think it's just that open communication. I think it's out there talking to them, visiting with clergy, visiting with faith-based groups, different activist groups. It doesn't matter if you're pro-police or anti-police. We build relationships with everybody, and we have to be out there to talk with them and let them know what's going on. I think you can show them stats. I think you can give them numbers. What they believe is what they feel and what they experience. So what is that traffic stop like? You know, how did you train the deputies to make a traffic stop and to deal with somebody of color? What is that perception they have? Are they open about what they've done? How did they approach the car? What were the first words that they said? So all of those come into training. But again, numbers will never buy you solace. It's what you feel in your gut. It's what you feel in your soul. And there's members of this community that were here through Senate Bill 1070. They felt the anger and the hate to the Hispanic community that 1070 brought. And they haven't gotten over it. And I think they see police in a different light. I don't think the media helps with law enforcement. I think they continue to try to erode trust in law enforcement. And I've been in law enforcement 35 years, and I can tell you that in Arizona, there is no systemic racism in law enforcement. There is no cover-up by police executives for misconduct by law enforcement officers. That doesn't happen. Anybody that tarnishes the badge, that makes people lose faith, trust, in the agency and the law enforcement, they need to leave. They have to go find something else to do. Without public sentiment, no police department is successful. You need the public to vote, you need the public to be your juror, and on your worst day, you might need the public to be your backup. So build that public trust, build sentiment, but the idea is, how are people treated and what do they feel?
Okay. Mr. Crawford, talk to us about trust.
So what Frank just said about there's no cover-ups to cover up malfeasance in office and law enforcement, and leadership in law enforcement isn't doing bad. That's why we're where we're at, is because that happened. That's why people are angry with the sheriff's office, and that's why we're under this court order that's cost us hundreds of millions of dollars, not tens, sorry. We have to stay from the dinosaur law enforcement era. Stats are out the window. Trying to look at numbers and decide how you're going to police a community is ineffective. Stats are, you get out of them what you put in. You put garbage in, you get garbage out. People manipulate stats and things to build their narrative. We have to get away from statistic-driven law enforcement. We have to get back to community-driven law enforcement. Be in the community. What does the community need? How can we provide it in the most professional, standard, and way possible? And then deliver it. Make good on your promises. We have to be involved with the community so they can help us help them. Work for the community. We need to stand on that pillar and never forget the community should dictate how our law enforcement responds. We can also have a Citizens Academy, invite people from the Latino community to come in and see what law enforcement officers face every day. It will get them involved. Give them ownership of their sheriff's office, because this is their sheriff's office. They will never be my deputies. They will always be your deputies. They will always work for you. I will always work for them. Thank you.
Mr. Crawford, following up on your response, do you believe the court should still be involved in the oversight of MCSO? And if so, why?
So I do. Because they haven't met the bar that they were supposed to. I worked for an accredited agency. Normally, there's the standard where law enforcement should be. MCSO has not hit that mark. The department I worked for in the past was way above. I know how to get that there. I know how to bring MCSO above the mark to teach them how to be true leaders in the community, in their own department, and we can bring that back.
Thank you. Mr. Sheridan, what is your position on this question? Do you believe the courts should still be involved?
Well, I believe that this process of having a court monitor is something that goes on into perpetuity. If you look at law enforcement agencies across the country that have had monitors, though they go on for years. For example, the monitor the Sheriff's Office currently has is also the monitor in Oakland, the city of Oakland in California. And they've been there for over 25 years, and they've still not reached compliance. So this is an issue that needs to be addressed. And how I will address it is very simple. I will communicate through my lawyers, obviously, directly with the, because the monitor is there. And I know, because I've worked with the monitor. And I stood out in the heat one day waiting for him. He was an hour late the very first day he got there. And I had my suit on and I was out there and I said, you know, Bob, I said, you know, we haven't gone through this before. The Sheriff's Office hasn't gone through this before. I need your help. I need your help to help me do this. And they said, oh, I'll help you. Sure, Jerry. Well, the first time I asked him for help, he looked at me and he goes, I'm not here to help you. I'm here to monitor what you do and the decisions you make. So that's the difficulty. That's the difficulty that I had for the 3 years I dealt with the monitor, and the current administration has had for the last 7.5 years. And if you look at some of the things that Sheriff Penzone said, and when he noticed everybody that he was resigning, he was saying the same thing that I'm telling you now. It's a very difficult thing. And like I said, I've never met a deputy sheriff that did anything because of the color of somebody's skin.
Thank you. Mr. Milstead, do you believe the courts should continue to be involved in the oversight of MCSO?
What I believe is that the women and men that work there are providing great service to the county under very difficult circumstances. The monitor itself is a negative influence on the morale department. It's why there's retention issues. It's why there's recruitment issues. They don't have an ideation or an inspirational leader of what they do in the department. Judge Snow has issued 3 court orders. He's a respected federal judge. Whatever is in those orders that has not been met, and I have not been privy to that, so my opinion is a little bit, I'm a little careful with it because I don't have empirical data to support that. But there's orders, they've been written, and one of 2 things has to happen. They either need to be met, they need to be negotiated through, or that you have to, I guess the third thing would be that you could use legal action against it. But at the end of the day, let's resolve the issue, let's get them behind us, and let's move forward in building a world-class sheriff's office. And having deputies out on the road when some kid walks up and says, hey, I sure love being a deputy, I'd love to work here. And you want that deputy to go, you do want to work here, this is a great place, we have great leadership, and not that, hey, don't come here because we're not allowed to do police work, we're being watched on everything we do, we're not allowed to be on offense. And I think that's where they feel that they are, and I think that's the huge problem with trying to get men and women to come and be part of that. Let's resolve the court issue. And again, I don't have the details to tell you yes or no, but I know that it is very much an impediment to the prosperity of the Sheriff's Office.
Okay. Mr. Milstead, let's stay with you on this 2-part question.
Yes, sir.
I'd love one answer to each of these.
Okay.
Sheriff Penzone was in office for about 7.5 years, but before that, obviously, the shadow of Sheriff Arpaio was there for a couple of decades. Is there one thing, one reform that Sheriff Penzone did that you would like to say continue going? And is there something that you would want to bring back from the Arpaio years?
So I think Paul, with his skill sets and what he brought to the job, he was trying to build a good team of people to solve the issues. And I think that they ran into problems and complexities, but I think his idea of bringing people from different walks of life to solve these issues is the right answer. I think you have to have a lot of different views of the court order to solve it. So I think that needs to continue. And it's something from the Arpaio days is that the men and women of the law enforcement agency know they're supported. They know that their leader has their back and that they can be on offense and they can go out and fight crime, put together crime fighting models that keep people safe, that let you go out and recreate and know that that people are there keeping an eye on things. So I think it's Joe's tough on crime that we need back, because I think we all can feel it and sense crime on the rise in Maricopa County. And that tough on crime is really what we need to do, and to get bad people off the streets and get them prosecuted by the county attorney so they can go to jail and serve their time. And then the beauty of that is I've never had my own jail that we had at that kind of time. I had a municipal jail at Mesa, but now we have a jail where we can work with these criminals and we can help them with a warm release. We can give them counseling. We can give them medicine assistance to their addictions. We can make sure they have a food handler's card or a driver's license, and we can put them back into society and hope that they can be productive and not be recidivist and come back. So that is the vision.
Okay, and Mr. Crawford, one reform in the Penzone years you liked, and one thing you might want to bring back from the Arpaio years.
I think with Sheriff Penzone's experience as the public information officer in his past, his communication with the community was better. I think we could do more. But I think the number one thing that I really appreciate that Sheriff Penzone did was he got the deputies and detention officers a raise that they hadn't gotten in 10 years. The pay scale at the sheriff's office is still not under a notified, clear-cut step plan. Every department I've ever seen or worked for has had a clear-cut pay scale step. The sheriff's office still doesn't. I was just talking to a detention officer that's worked there for 19 years, and he's still not topped out in what should be their pay scale. This can't occur. You can't retain officers. You can't retain good people with good experience. And he was Hispanic. He has a family to raise. We talked about it a long time. We were sitting in church, and we have to get back to taking care of the people that take care of us. The money that's being wasted on this monitor, and to clarify, I don't mind the monitor being there, monitoring the sheriff's office, but I think the costs and it being it's prohibitive because the monitors are being paid, so they are incentivized to not go along with the orders and to say that the sheriff's office isn't complying, because some of them are getting tens of millions of dollars a year. With Arpaio, I think the shadow of Arpaio is standing next to me here with both of them. One worked for him for over 20 years and another one's endorsed by him. I think we need to get away from that type of hardcore, tough as nails law enforcement. We need to be involved more in the community, more receptive to what the community has to say and to offer to us, so we can offer better services to the community.
Mr. Sheridan, one reform you like from Penzone, one thing you'd bring back from Arpaio?
Well, Sheriff Penzone was very good at communicating with the public because of his PR background, and his outreaches to the community were very effective. And we talked about that perception a little bit ago, and we need to work on that. And every law enforcement agency needs to work on that. So as far as Sheriff Arpaio, he really did care about the people that worked at the sheriff's office, whether you were a civilian employee, janitor, whether you were a dispatcher, detention officer, or deputy sheriff. And he really cared about those people at the line level, and people understood that, and they're more energetic to go to work every day and do their job. So that's a key thing. You know, I ran those jails for 12 years as the chief, and Tent City was something that I'm contemplating on bringing back. I probably won't be able to put tents out there, but that type of housing really helped us manage the inmate population. It cut down on the amount of drugs that are currently in the jail system, which is an epidemic level right now. And it also allowed us to do something really good about having work release and work furlough. Work release and work furlough allows somebody, if you get 5 days in the county jail, you can go to work. You're not going to lose your job. And we also did very well in teaching people how to take an oral interview, how to dress, how to fill out a resume, and do all those things because we had that availability. We had a great program system with all those inmates. So I would bring back more than one thing.
Okay.
Okay, staying with you, Mr. Sheridan, you mentioned Tent City. That created a lot of noise for our state and also got Sheriff Arpaio to be very well known worldwide, Tent City. You mentioned that you're contemplating. What type of model will you implement as related to Tent City?
Okay. The possibility of bringing tents back here is zero, okay, because every year we had to get a special use permit by the fire marshal. And it got more difficult as years went on, as the city became more democratic. And so my idea is a barracks type of situation that, again, will give us that flexibility to do that. Tent City, you know, and this is one of the things that, that Sheriff Joe was known for, obviously, right? But he made it out to be like it was a gulag and like it was terrible. But you know what? I walked those tents with the ACLU, with the DOJ lawyers, with the plaintiffs' lawyers, and they all asked the people there, do you like it here? Is it so? And they'd much rather be in Tent City. I would say 90%, not everybody, but 90% of the inmates that were in Tent City loved to be there. They rather, well, maybe love isn't the right word. They rather have been there than locked down in a hard facility where they don't have access. And I remember one day we were with some DOJ lawyers and we were over with the women's tents. And one of the female inmates told the DOJ lawyers that it's like being here in a campout. Arpaio made it sound a lot worse than it was, and that was just his shtick, his way of Arpaio, I guess. I don't know. But the inmates, they weren't stuck out in tents all day. They could go in an air-conditioned facility. They could stand under the shower all day if they want. And a lot of them worked in the kitchen, and so they ate better than the other inmates. And they all worked. They all did something. And
thank you. Mr. Milstead, would you agree with the model of Tent City, and will you implement something similar?
So first I got to tell you, I chuckled just a little bit. Mike wanted to infer that somehow with Joe's endorsement that I'm Joe Arpaio, and that's somehow a negative. When, according to Joe, Mike had called Joe 2 days before he endorsed me and asked for his endorsement. So I get a little chuckle out of that. And I'm not Joe, but I think what Joe sees in me is a team player, and that's what he wants from the county sheriff's office. He wants somebody that will work with other agencies. I worked with Joe very closely when I was at Phoenix. When I was a DPS director, he gave us $500,000 to build the border strike force. When the county needed assistance from another police agency, whether it was I was at Phoenix, Mesa, or at DPS, we provided that assistance. So I want to address that. As far as Tent City, I have no issue of bringing Tent City back. There's all kinds of issues, logistics, costs, and things. But what I think is important that does need to be brought back is a trustee program where the women and men that are incarcerated, and if you look at the jail population right now, there's about 6,000 inmates in the jail, and 1,200 of them have a bond that is less than $1,000. But we're still clothing them, feeding them, giving them medical attention, and housing them and securing them with Maricopa County taxpayer dollars. So there needs to be a system put back in place, a trustee system where they can do yard work. They can trim the trees, mow the grass, they can work in the motor pool, they can work along the highways to clean the highways again, or just working in the jail system itself to keep it clean and tidy. But they need to have a way to work off that bond so they can go back and work their way back into society and be productive. The system that is in place now for us to pay for people that only owe less than $1,000 every day is, to me, very nonsensical.
Thank you. Mr. Crawford, will you implement a model similar to Tent City?
No, and former chief of the jails, Mr. Sheridan, just described how it was ineffective. Jail is supposed to keep people from wanting to be in jail. It's not supposed to be a camp out or a cookout, happy place. And his description shows how pointless it was. We were paying for a tent city area where people would rather be than in the jails, the hard jails, the buildings that we're already paying for. I don't see why we should charge taxpayers in Maricopa County more money for something that's ineffective when we already have hard facilities that we are the maintenance, the utilities, and the manpower to be in. Tent City is the dodo bird. It's gone. It won't come back, and I don't think we need it. I think we need more programs in the community to keep people from committing crimes and stop incentivizing some of these releases. People are showing up right now and they're getting, it's like kindergarten. They get a snack pack and a gift bag, and they're on technology tablets, and they're still offending from inside the jails. We need to get a handle on that. We need to get the drugs shut out of the jail and make sure that the people that are incarcerated, maybe they're not sentenced yet or whatever, we need to make sure that they're safe while they're inside these facilities. We have a responsibility to make sure that they're safe. People inside jail facilities on drugs are also a danger to law enforcement officers and our corrections people. We need to make sure that they are taken care of. I called Joe Arpaio to wish him happy birthday, and I did actually decline his endorsement.
Gentlemen, we're coming to the close of this debate.
I'd like to address something
30 seconds.
that Mike brought up. Okay. I didn't mean to insinuate that it was a cakewalk in Tent City, because you're still sleeping at 100 degrees at night, and you're working. We had the inmates work. And I think most people would probably say that they have a friend or a family member, a neighbor that they know that went to Tent City and they don't drink and drive again, that they straightened up. And matter of fact, several of my biggest supporters are people that spent time in Tent City because it turned them around.
Okay. Gentlemen, 60-second response to this one as we come to the close of this debate. Mr. Crawford, let me start with you. To what degree, if any, should MCSO be involved with immigration status, checking that? Because people have been concerned that for a while that distracted from other cases.
Right now, none. Maricopa County Sheriff's Office is actually not allowed to do any immigration enforcement, and they shouldn't be. Until we get everything at the Sheriff's Office up to par, get out of this lawsuit and the oversight, which is needed right now, but we need to get the Sheriff's Office to the level where this oversight is no longer needed and be more involved in the community. We have to reorganize how the Sheriff's Office works. There's a lot of ways that we can change things in the jail, and we have to bring the Sheriff's Office technology-wise. They're lacking in a lot of things there. But we can do it, and they are simpler solutions than people make it out to be. It just needs to be looked at from a reasonable and responsible manner.
Okay. Mr. Milstead, should MCSO be involved with immigration at all?
They're enjoined by the court to not be involved, so no, they should not be. Again, where this all started was a failure on the administration to take care of immigration and migrant crime. And I think that is where we do need to be involved. We need to be involved on criminal predicate, no matter who's committing those crimes. When I was the chief of police in Mesa, we put together a crime-fighting model that drove crime down in Mesa to 60-year lows. When I took over Arizona DPS, we put together the Arizona Border Strike Force to keep a lid and to assist the sheriff's departments on the borders, to see as be a kind of a third resort for them, and to fight the trafficking of human beings, sex trafficking. We trained agencies across the country how to do sex trafficking investigations and human trafficking investigations. And then the other thing, and you see fentanyl coming over by the metric ton, they're killing our kids. We have to do something to keep fentanyl out of your kid's sock drawer.
Okay. Mr. Sheridan, wrap us up.
Okay. I was the chief when I brought ICE into the jail system. And the reason was that ICE asked us to get involved and help identify criminal illegal aliens. And that's what we did. And that was my responsibility in bringing 287G into our jail system. And so the sheriff does, because the sheriff gets all the criminals are arrested for felonies.
I'm going to need to cut you off in just a few seconds. Wrap it up in one sentence, please.
Okay. And so the sheriff does play a role in identifying criminal illegal aliens.
Thank you. It's time for closing statements. Each of you have 1 minute. To keep us on time, we'll politely cut you off if you run over. Mr. Sheridan, you have the first closing statement.
Okay, thank you very much. You know, I know the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office better than anyone, even the current appointed sheriff, out of the 5 candidates that are running for to be the sheriff. And the Sheriff's Office needs somebody like me with my experience, because the Sheriff's Office today is in abysmal straits. On average, since 2017, 49 inmates a year have died in custody in the jail system. There are over 1,100 detention officers short. The drugs are at epidemic level in the jail system. And to go on to patrol, patrol is about 50% staffing. And that's all because the lack of understanding of a sheriff's office, because a sheriff's office should be run by a career deputy sheriff, not by a city cop. Those 3 words on the patrol cars are my words: integrity, accountability, and community.
Thank you. Mr. Crawford, you have 1 minute for your closing statement.
Thank you. I plan on using my military leadership background and my experience in law enforcement at the line level to bring the sheriff's office where it needs to be. Think of why we're in the mess we're in. We cannot go back to that. The problem cannot be the solution. I am the new hope for the sheriff's office. Like I said before, I haven't been behind a desk for decades. I'm a law enforcement officer. I've been out on the streets protecting you. I've taken fentanyl off the streets. I was a DEA agent. I have actually fought the cartels hand to hand. I know how to shut them down and get them out of Maricopa County so they will quit victimizing our families and our neighbors. We have to shut down the drug issues. I'm Mike Crawford. Please remember, I am tougher than lightning, and I'm here to protect you and make sure your sheriff's office is a proud establishment for you so you feel safe in your community.
Mr. Milstead, you have 60 seconds.
I'm the only guy in the dais that's led 2 major police departments, Arizona DPS and Mesa, and I was in leadership position at Phoenix PD. I spent a lifetime inspiring and building coalitions with those agencies by building trust with the women and men that I lead. The deputies need to be on offense. They need to know they're supported. They need to know they can go out and do their job and make split-second decisions with the support of leadership. Nobody up here has talked about anything that they've done. They've talked about things they'd like to do or they think they can do. The only things I told you about tonight were the stuff that I've already done, the things I've established. 60-year crime rate low in Mesa, the Arizona Border Strike Force, morale at Arizona DPS. I have been greeted with success everywhere that I've been a leader. I have men and women who support me at the previous places that I worked, even though I'm gone. And I'm the only one that's going to be able to inspire people to be there, to stay there, and know that they have the trust of leadership.
You. This wraps today's debate with the Republican candidates for Maricopa County Sheriff. As a reminder, the Arizona primary election is on July 30th, and early voting starts July 3rd. All registered voters can participate in the primary, including independents.
There are a lot of offices up for election this year, so we'll keep hosting debates through the November election. Head to azmedia.org to see a list of every local media partner, plus upcoming debates and where you can find them on TV, radio, and digital platforms. You can also see the full debate schedule, learn more about clean elections, and submit questions for future debates by heading to azcleanelections.gov. On behalf of our partners at Clean Elections, the Arizona Media Association, Reister, and Bitfire Studios, thanks for joining us.
All right, what's happening? What's happening? I'm in here. We locked and loaded. Whack 100 tries to bail out Keefy D. We finna get into it. Y'all know what it is. Shout out Shaniqua Town Business, like always in the chat. Y'all know what it is. Smut Free TV, the hottest content in these internet streets. No cap. Yeah. So look, we're about to open this room and we're gonna get the discussion rolling. So get your popcorn, go get your tree, your whatever you're trying to smoke, drink. Let's get to it. Let's get to it, y'all. No cap. No cap. No cap. All right. Turn this up.
Powering on.
Signing with everybody.
For your fucking nails.
Hey.
Too early for your fucking nails.
Turn on for that we trying to hit me. Y'all know what time it is, though. We locked in. We about to go crazy with the content. Let me open this room up. Get people ready. And we doing it like this. Boom. There we go. Pin link. And I just reacted to it, so that reaction about to come out soon. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, we live and direct. Y'all know what's cracking. Please, I'm gonna bring you up. Please hold your cursing. Don't be cursing. Watch your language. I'm gonna bring you up. Give it a couple minutes before we start really getting into it. Just warm up the room. That's it. Ping up. If you come on stage, ping up. That's it. That's all. Get to that. We strictly content right now. What's happening with everybody? We thugging. Rich, Coco, Thrasher, what's happening? Good. For my boy King Sean. Like I said, if I bring you on stage, man, hold your language. We are live right now on YouTube, Smut Free TV. Whack 100 tries to bail out Keefy D. It's been a lot going on. I just reacted to it. Y'all about to get that reaction soon. As soon as I upload and get it cracking. Yeah, man. It's a lot to talk about. It's a lot to unravel. I feel like, you know, this was an interesting day. I don't think nobody expected to see Whack on Law and Crime today.
That's a fact, though.
Hey,
man,
bro, when you know how many people sent me that today? I was like, oh my God. Because it's like, you know, before we go into detail, let's warm up the room. Let's ping up. If y'all on YouTube, make sure you like the stream, share the stream. Y'all know what's cracking. We rocking and rolling right now. Smut Free TV. You know, yeah, man. Whack loves snitches. He likes to help snitches. If you a snitch, he coming to help you. If you famous and got a little motion and you done told, he coming to help you.